I think I know what I want to yarnimate now. And I think we're going to be moving to DK, which has a lot more variety in terms of the kind of colours that I want. It is a bit more ambitious in that it requires a lot more yarn. So I'm a little bit nervous about the expense, but it'll get done. And it's a few different kind of DK yarns I'm looking at, and I think it should be fine to mix them, but I don't know for sure, like worsted and non-worsted. I don't really know what the difference is. I'm going to be honest, I'll have to look that up. This month, however, I am going to be focusing on kind of trial runs of adding in, changing yarns within the same project, keeping track of the number of stitches, which I am not great at, but kind of reliably can tell you how many in a row there are, just not how many the other way there are. The person who taught me to knit, my gran, is now no longer with us, and so I am gonna dedicate this project to her. I did not tell her that I was doing this. I kind of thought I would be able to surprise her at the end of the year. I hope she likes it anyway. I know what I want to do now. I've been thinking about this since we found out about the death, and I wasn't sure. I went through several iterations in my mind. Look, in keeping with the water theme, it's a river from its source to the sea. There was an idea of like we're going to follow a fish from hatching to the sea, and that was going to be more kind of tile art-esque. But that's a lot more complicated and too on the nose, whereas this is just... You can see why I was thinking about this, but it's not obvious. I mean, it might still be obvious, but there are two ways I could do this, and I'm not sure which is the harder. But you know I'm not going to make this easy for myself. Nonetheless, I think we'll talk about that a little bit more. I do intend to start the practice runs of changing out the yarns as we go. I found a brown that I really like for the soil. I'm going to be looking for some greens for grass or moss, maybe even seaweed, and some blues for the water. That initial yarnimation that I showed you that inspired this, I like that, and it was a lot of work on the part of the person who made it, but I prefer variegated yarns over plain colours, and I feel like that gives it a bit more life. But we'll see. It is also, I'm pretty sure, a chunkier yarn than the ones that I'm looking at. And I am a little bit nervous of like buying yarns and then realising that, oh no, this is the wrong weight for what I want to do. But you live and you learn. So it's time. I did promise that I was going to start knitting this month, and I am. It is the white and the pink. We're trying these two because they're the same make, with the same kind of yarn. As we go on, the yarns that I've been looking at, and I'm including a few links down below to the ones I've been looking at. It's probably going to be a mix of yarns, which I don't know how well that goes. They'll all be DK, but aside from that, I don't really know. And as I said, I think I said before, these are my Gran's needles that I have been given by her. I have also been given this, which is very handy. It is a stitch counter, which I have never used before, but hopefully will help. Because as I said, I can count most of the time across the ways. Up and down is not my forte. And I wanted also to talk a little bit about okay. I don't know where the start is. That's going to be interesting. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the idea for it. A river emerging from, I guess, a wee crack in the earth and then leading to the sea is what I settled on, but I did say that there was a few ideas of how it could go, and I don't think I elaborated on that, and if I did, I am very sorry for the repeat. But it basically comes down to whether I want this to be purely a knitting project or also a kind of environmental project, by which I mean, do I want to bring in a box of soil and just knit A, the river itself, and B, any kind of fauna, no, that's not the right word for fish, any kind of, actually I think it would include fauna on the banks of the river. That idea would take less yarn, but do I want to work with soil is the question. I'd be putting it in a big kind of tub. We have a few kind of basins that I could use. We have enough soil, I think, and of course soil can always be repurposed and used in the garden, and I think that would be interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about using soil and then possibly accidentally discovering a worm in it, or worse, a spider. I am very thankful for, you know, their role in the ecosystem, because I don't like insects either, but it would not be fun for any of us. And also I don't have, I've just been filming this on my phone, I don't have like an overhead rig or anything. I don't know how you would do that, so I don't know if I could position this well, and I don't think any of the basins are quite big enough to position it at a slant, although I think that could also be interesting. But like I said, I don't think I have the technology to make that a worthwhile endeavour. I will also say, while I'm talking about switching between yarns, don't worry, I'm not gonna make you watch the whole thing. I'm not gonna film the whole thing, as in like this project. There's also, I have an Estonian book of knitting, and it was the first time I saw that you could knit with more than one thread of yarn at a time, and I haven't done it myself, so I'm very curious about the effect that that would have. If that's worth doing for soil or maybe a mossy patch of forest, would it be worth adding in green? I think that might be a bit more naturalistic looking than just swapping in a bit of green yarn in amidst the brown soil. Big questions, and I'm sorry that I have not been doing a lot of work this month. As I said, it's not been the best month for knitting for me. It just occurs to me that I completely forgot to put the gauge on the needle. Very helpful. Whether I remember what the number is supposed to mean is up for debate, by which I mean, am I counting the row that I'm currently working on, or is it just the ones I have done before? You would think that would be easy. It is not. We are looking at, oh, actually I have to put the numbers in. We're looking at a few colours right now. Brown, of course, for the earth. I'm looking for some kind of greens, duller greens, variegated is my favourite because I feel like that gives things a more natural looking, more, I guess, realistic. I don't think that's, yeah. Blues for the water. I'm trying to talk myself out of getting two browns, two shades of browns, because yeah, probably trees and probably roots, but that amount of detail and having to count out not only for the river but also for like how thick the tree trunks are is probably not in my best interest to attempt. And I'm currently wondering, however, whether I need two shades of blue for when it kind of reaches the sea. And we are going to get to waves, and as I mentioned with the idea for doing waves, we will of course be switching between these two, the thicker, this bit for the waves and this bit for the sea. We'll see how that goes. See, the variegated yarns are absolutely lovely. They are also about £20 ish and above, which is a little bit concerning in terms of budget, which is also something that I have not done. I guess I just sort of assumed that budget would be changing because of course I started this in January and my money situation has changed drastically as I thought it would, but not in the way that I wanted it to. So yeah, that will be interesting. I really need to get onto that though. Maybe a monthly allowance from this point on. On the bright side, my family, my gran as well. We went once or twice to New Lanark, which is not new. As with most like new towns and new places, it was built a few hundred years ago. But I think they have a nice kind of brown yarn that I really like the look of. I think it would pass for soil very easily. Its colouring actually reminds me a little bit of this, the little blues amidst the white. Yeah, I think the lighting's not great for that. Can you see it? Yeah. So it's mostly brown with little kind of not quite speckles, and I think that would be lovely, and that's around $9.99, which is great because we're going to need a lot of browns, and so that is such a relief. I hope it's still in stock, because I will not start buying until next month, mainly because I really need to look up if different kinds of yarns, not different weights, but different kinds of yarns go well together. There's a few that I'm looking at that are lovely, but they're like alpaca yarn, and I don't know how that goes with wool. I assume it would be okay, but you know what thought did. And it has done it again, which does not bode well for any of this. You can see the difference here, how loose it is compared to here.